Welcome to this episode of the Growthcast. We are back again for another Saturday extended cut. This is me, Jackson Campbell, joined together with Dallas Pruitt. Dallas, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well.
Awesome, man. Really excited to talk about what we have planned today. Today, we're going to talk about, Dal, remind me, I just went blank. I had it right here in front of me. We're going to talk about strategies that you can use when reading, right? So read to lead strategies. Yeah,
super sexy topic today.
No, but it is.
Right?
But it is.
Absolutely it is. Sexy. Yes. It's awesome.
No, dude, I think a lot of times there's a lot of recommendations for books that are thrown around and people don't know where to start. So I'm excited to pick your brain to figure out, hey, which book should I choose to read and how do I go about reading it? But before we dive in and before we do that, just a quick rundown. Schedule of the Growthcast. The Growthcast is presented by the Multifamily Mindset and Multifamily Capital Partners. It's a podcast that provides daily value based on multifamily real estate and mindset topics. Monday through Thursday, we have our daily drip that's hosted by Dallas Pruitt, the one and only, who brings those daily mindset principles. Again, that's Monday through Thursday. Tune into those episodes. Very powerful and an awesome way to start your day, get your mindset right. On Friday, we have our Aloha Friday drips hosted by myself, and I'm able to interview Tyler Devereaux. It's a pretty cool opportunity that I get to interview him and dive into some real estate principles, but we also always mix in the mindset principles because the mindset principles you got to. And then Saturday is our extended cut where I get the opportunity to deep dive into an interview with Dallas Pruitt on mindset principles that he provides for us throughout the week. So I'm pumped to really dive in today again, dude, about reading. A lot of times, like you said, one of the questions that you get often is, where do I start? So many books are being thrown around and suggested, hey, you need to read this one. Hey, you need to read this one. This one's crucial for business. You got to do this. So Dal, where do we start? Where do we start, dude?
Yeah. I think it's like, there's two things that are talked about. Like when you talk about self-development and, self-mastery, self-help, right? Like I think there are two things that are overly talked about. Like, and I think we miss the boat because it's just like people talk about them all the time. And also it's kind of like generic talk.
Yeah.
It's kind of like surface level talk. And that is attacking the morning or winning the morning is our reference, right? However you want to. Attacking the dawn, Ryan Holiday refers to it as attacking the dawn, stoicism, whatever, right? And reading, like those two things are just like overly talked about. So I think people miss the boat. One, they're talked about a ton because they're extremely impactful. But two, like we don't want to skim over them and just talk about them generically because of the importance of those two habits. In terms of development in life, business growth. And so today, that's what we hope to do is like dive a little bit deeper and give you some tactics and try to adjust your frame, your lens of like how you view reading, how you view it, the implementation of that habit in your life, how you go about it, because there are some ways that are that are extremely impactful. And there are ways that are deflating, and create like a bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah.
And it's not because you're not a reader. It's not because reading's not for you and you have better learning avenues and there's better things out there, which there are great things out there. It's just because maybe you haven't been taught or understand how to go about that and how to make it impactful for you. Right. And again, I think that's one of the other things with this is like, we're going to give you these strategies, but you are you, and you might have something that's slightly modified or different with what we address today that serves as extremely impactful for you. And that's great. But these things are pretty universal. And I have found that these are what have helped me to reap the benefits of amazing work that other individuals have done throughout the course of their life.
Yeah.
Right. So
that's a great way to look at reading though, too. Real quick, just a little side note there. It's a great way to look at reading and really make you respect it and be a little bit more grateful for it, dude. A lot of these people and these books that you go forward with and you read on the, especially on the self-help mindset side, it's a lifetime worth of studies and works compiled into a book. So it is really powerful stuff and makes you super grateful that it's right there at your fingertips.
Totally.
Dallas, as we dive in here, the first question, I have some questions that I want to ask you specifically about reading. The very first question is, what should we read? What should we be reading?
Well, it just depends. What's relevant to your goals? What's relevant to your life? So many people like throw out these books, assuming that they're super applicable to everybody.
Yeah.
And they're just not, right? Like, I don't know your situation perfectly. And so I'd have to maybe get to know you. If you were asking me that question specifically as an individual, well, I would love to have some grounds to understand you better. And then I could possibly have some really good recommendations.
Yeah.
But you have to pay attention to that. Like, you're not going to be able to go table that with some reading professional every single place you go.
Right.
You're not going to go into Barnes and Noble and be like, okay, let me tell you my life story. Let me tell you where I'm currently at. Can you point me to that section? Like, that's freaking tough conversation to have with the barista at Starbucks at freaking Barnes and Noble,
Right.
You got to get to know yourself. You need to gain clarity on what it is you want to accomplish, what you're working on, what those strengths, weaknesses, everything else. And then once you're at that point, man, there you can start making better judgment on the right books for you. So relevancy, I think you need to be reading something that's relevant. And another important principle or strategy with that is, if you grab something thinking it's super applicable and that it's going to be extremely impactful and you're excited, and a couple chapters in, it's not relevant. It's not what you thought it was. Or you didn't know yourself well enough and you recognize this is great, but I'm not seeing the impact because I'm actually in a different situation than what I thought I was. Well, then guess what? You don't have to finish it. You don't. No, but there's no rule. Put that sucker down and set it for a later date. Put it back in the queue. I think that's one that, for some, it's maybe you fall into a trap of thinking you're a quitter or what. Yeah. Dude, you don't have to read it. If it sucks or if it's not relevant and it's not functioning at a high level, dude, put it down, find something different. And I do that all the time. Yeah.
I mean, it's an important thing to do, dude. So I guess a follow-up question is, how do we determine its relevancy? How do we determine if a book's relevant for us? I think the first thing that comes to my brain there is if there's actionables that you can implement immediately that you're getting from that book. You know what I mean? So as you're learning things, what can you take from that book and start implementing immediately into your life to start testing?
So on that same note, any book can produce that.
Yeah.
But it's how you go about that work to make those things actionable. So let me be even more simple. Let me simplify it even further. Go slow. Yeah. Go slow. So many people tell you to go fast. So many people tell you to read X amount of books a year. And, a couple of these strategies are: one, read less books, quit more books, right? You don't need more books. You need important books.
Right.
You need relevant books, right? And then the other part to that is slow down, digest the material. And there are ways that you can digest and make that material actionable. It's a little bit additional work. It's not just reading, it's annotating. It's, I've heard people who create note cards and file note cards with notes, with actionables that they've pulled and created for themselves based off the principles and strategies shared and highlights shared in the book, the insights shared in the book, right? Summarize what you've read every single time you hit the chopping block, right? Whatever you've read that day, try to reword it to yourself and personalize it through some type of summary. Again, that requires intentional, strategic time, that type of work. But that's the directive I would give to everyone who wants to reap the benefits of the powerful strategies, insight, and everything else that are included in these amazing works. Don't just plow through it to just plow through it, right? That's not going to be impactful. Take your freaking time and create a system around some of those types of things that works for you. I love highlighting. I love creating annotations in my book. I love flipping the book sideways, and then I write my notes with arrows that connect to whatever however I've made that principle actionable in my life. Yeah. My books are dirty. My books are messy, but it's not messy to me. It's a system that works for me. Right. And my journals chock full of summaries.
Yeah.
Personalization of whatever it is that I read that specific day with the date, or however I've marked that thing up. What's crazy, like if I took it a step further, these principles that I've developed in my own work of like TIMIC, anchor your actions in purpose, those all derive from variations of similar things that I learned from others. But the way I teach, the way I train, the way I coach, the way I lead, the way I work, it's personal to me. It became actionable for me. The most important conversation was something that I needed to address, that I came to the recognition of through books, and developed that strategy and principle based off the way I navigated and digested the information as it was coming to me, and I was trying to make it actionable. Well, all of a sudden, spurned from that is another way to help everybody else, right, who struggle with the same thing. And so slow your A down, slow your roll. Books are meant to be digested.
Yes.
And there's also books that are meant to just be entertaining, and that's great too. Reading serves that purpose. But today we're specifically talking about like reading to lead, reading to like go and create an impact in your life. So awesome,
dude. Okay, so we've talked about what we need to read and how we need to read about it and how we need to go about reading it, right? Annotations, summarizing what it is that you've read. Dude, one of the things that I wanted to add there about how to go about reading, one of the things that I picked up from Tyler is if you're reading it with the intention to teach somebody else it, you're going to retain that much. You're going to retain that much more information that you're reading, right? So as you're reading, have that thought in the back of your mind. How could I teach what I'm reading right now to somebody else? And that will help you internalize and understand what it is that you're reading so much better. I just wanted to add that on the how to go about reading.
Let's add another strategy there that builds on that one too, which is to reread.
Yes.
Right. Like we've had that happen numerous times.
So many times.
And I bet you there's people within our company, because it's normal. It's natural, right? Like we've went through our book of the month. We have this book of the month within the company. We have a book of the month within the network. And I'm sure things pop up and they're like, and again, teach their own, because everybody's got to be reading what's relevant and following all these strategies. But traction is a good example. I read Traction 8 months ago. Well, we bring in a new CPOO. Shout out to Rowan, freaking
incredible.
Changed the game. Love her so much. And we decide as a leadership team, like, hey, we're going to read Traction again. Well, for me, it was again, dude, rereading. I could have easily said, I've read that.
Yeah, man.
I've read that. Like, thanks. Yes.
Yep.
No. And I have learned so much more by rereading that book. And so I think rereading's a really important strategy. And even rereading something that maybe you read yesterday throughout your time slot that you didn't quite grasp, that didn't make sense. Don't just go to the next chapter. If it's impactful and relevant and beneficial, like, and you'll be able to recognize that, like, go back and reread that chapter.
Yep.
It's not a race. Nobody's timing you. You're not up against anybody else but you figuring out your stuff. So if it's that important, go back and reread it. And reread it.
Awesome, dude. Okay, so we talked about what we need to read, how we need to go about reading it, and some tactics there, dude. One more question that I want to just follow up on as we wrap up here is when should we be reading, Dow?
That one's easy. Every day.
How long?
Every day, right? A habit is something that you do every day. It's something that you just naturally do. It's formed over the course of time. And the question you just asked was what?
How long? How long should we be reading?
I mean, depends. I would say for the bare minimum, 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know some people are like 10 minutes. Oh, it's like you have 10 minutes.
You can do 10 minutes.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Right. But like, I think that it just needs to be a part of every single day. And the time is going to be a little bit different every day, depending on what's going on and everything else. But you have to create a system around it. And one of the easiest ways to make sure that time slot's always effective and super consistent is to include that in the morning. For me, that's how it works. I know that my morning is for me. I know that my morning doesn't have distraction. I know that things haven't stockpiled. And I'm, like, I don't know, sometimes growing, and again, a lot of people listening are business owners, or maybe they're just doing something different that's very time consuming, but like, you don't know how the day is going to pan out sometimes, right?
Right.
Sometimes I'm in the office trying to help with emergencies or whatever until 6:30. And it's not like I can just leave and then go read, because I have children and a family that depend on me as well. And so it's like, if I don't read in the morning, there is a chance it is in jeopardy.
Yeah.
And I just don't like that, because I know through figuring out these strategies and reaping the benefits of it in my business and my life, it's just not something I'm willing to jeopardize.
Yeah, dude, it sounds like it's become a non-negotiable for you. Like, you have to read every day. And that's a great answer to my question, is when we should read. Is it doesn't matter when you read, but you need to make it a non-negotiable to read every single day.
Systemize it too, though. Like, you've got to make sure it's a system.
Exactly.
You can't just be like, well, I'm going to read today.
No,
make it easy.
Mm-hmm.
Make it easy to deliver on. Pick a time slot. I don't care. Maybe your morning's different. And that's okay. It doesn't have to look like mine. Maybe night's a great time. But again, if you're going to fulfill on really reaping the benefits of reading, it's not like you kicking up, in your bed with your head on your pillow and your night lamp on. Like, gosh, you're going to want to have a journal ready. Like, you're going to want to have a pen and a highlighter readily available, And what's crazy, dude, is if you start doing these things, you'll find that you actually want to read more.
Yes.
That's the other thing about it, is like,
you'll see the benefits.
You want to read more.
Reading is one of those things where you see the benefits immediately. Like, you read for one day, you see the benefits of reading that throughout that day. It's
if you read this way, right?
Yeah.
If you read the other way, actually, like, sometimes people are like, F this. And it's like, you've just been going about it wrong.
Yeah.
You've been going about it wrong. It's not that you're, again, coming back full circle to the beginning. It's not that you're not a reader. It's not that reading's not for you. It's not that it's not a good strategy for you. You've been doing it wrong. You've been listening to the wrong information. And I'm telling you, these things are extremely impactful. If you want to read to lead in your life, then again, you got to read less books. You've got to choose books that are relevant to your life. You've got to find a way of taking mental notes of the things that you're reading and make them actionable. And slow down, reread when necessary. And you go about it that way, I'm telling you, you will reap the benefits for a very long time, and it'll be a non-negotiable for you.
Totally, dude. As you're talking, like, something that's coming to my mind as we're wrapping up here is something that you're always saying is growth is strategic. It happens by design. Exactly what we're talking about, right? Exactly what we're talking about. You have to figure out what system works for you when it comes to reading and implement that. There has to be a system there, because once the system's there, then you just follow into the system and reap those rewards, right? So
absolutely,
growth is strategic. It happens by design. So make sure you're designing some sort of strategy, some sort of system to be able to read effectively, not just
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
It's not just books.
No.
It's articles. It's case studies. It's
good point.
Newsletters. It's posts on social media. It's everything. Anything that's written content, right? Like, reading is reading. And so I just wanted to make sure that was super clear, because my system also involves not just reading strictly books. Right. I like to, James Clear calls it surrounding the topic. And he says to not just use one book or one article as the basis for your belief system. And I love the way that he teaches that, because it's like, I reference Mindset by Carol Dweck a lot. I reference Man's Search for Meaning a lot by Viktor Frankl. But like, something that I'm reading right now that I've surrounded the topic of purpose with is Ikigai, right? This is a current book that I'm reading. And again, it's finding different perspective around the same topic, right? That's an important strategy as well. And you can find that in books, but you can also find it in newsletters. and everything else. And so
Totally.
don't get stuck in tunnel vision and constrict your belief system to be like fine-tuned with just one perspective. Go out and surround the topic with other perspective out there. And that's how you will develop your proper perspective for your life. And that is extremely impactful. So I just wanted to add that last piece.
No, it's a great thing to add on there. Dallas, thank you so much for your time, man. Your wisdom and these actionables when it comes to reading. Let's implement these things so we can grow for sure. Dal, thank you so much. For the listeners, please make sure that you share.
Shake too if you need to.
You shake, if you need to shake, if you need to shake out the wheelies, go ahead. Go make sure you share, rate, and review the episode. We're very grateful for the opportunity that we get to do these and for y'all that tune in and listen. And we want to reach as many people as possible. So please share the episode and share the Growthcast. Dallas, thank you so much again for your time and your wisdom. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Have a great rest of your day. Y'all take care.